He had always been quiet, the kind of person who could sit in a room full of people and go completely unnoticed. Even when he spoke, it was in a soft, careful voice, as if he was afraid the world would be too loud for him. People often told him to stay quiet, sometimes gently, sometimes sharply, as if silence was safer than noise. He didn't mind too much, though. He had learned early that staying in the background meant fewer questions, fewer expectations, and fewer disappointments. In school, he would sit at the back of the classroom, his notebook open, but mostly blank. Teachers rarely called on him, and when they did, he would give small, careful answers that usually satisfied them enough to move on. He watched the other students, noting how they laughed, argued, and performed in ways that he never dared to try. There was a world of sound and color and life around him, and he felt like an invisible thread weaving through it all, present but unseen. But inside him there was something else, something bright and restless that refused to be ignored. It was a skill, a talent, though he had never thought to call it that. He could see patterns where others saw chaos, hear the subtleties of sound where others heard only noise, and imagine stories that stretched far beyond the walls of his small world. He had kept it hidden for years, unsure if anyone would understand, afraid that the world might crush it if it ever came out. Every day followed the same pattern. He would arrive early, find a seat at the back, and listen. He noticed small things. The way the sunlight fell through the windows, the way the teacher's pen scratched across paper, the subtle changes in his classmates' expressions when they thought no one was watching. He absorbed it all, storing it quietly in the corners of his mind. These observations were his companions, filling the silence he had been asked to keep. At home, things were no different. His family meant well, but they never really listened. Conversations were polite and short, and often he would fade into the background while others spoke. He loved them, but he learned to speak less to avoid interrupting, to avoid drawing attention to himself. Still, late at night, when the house was quiet and the world seemed to pause, he would take out his notebook or a small instrument he had been learning to play, and he would let the hidden parts of himself come alive. The music, the sketches, the stories, they were all proof that he existed in ways no one else had yet seen. School events were especially hard. When a performance or presentation came up, he would be chosen last, if at all. The loudest, most confident voices were always in front, and he would sit in the wings, holding his small props or sheet music, heart thudding as he watched others shine. Sometimes he wished he could run away, disappear into the shadows where no one could ask him to perform, where no one could point out that he was different. One day, the principal announced a school showcase. It was a day when every student could display a skill, perform a piece of music, or present a project. He heard the announcement and felt the familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach. He knew what the teachers would say to him before it even happened. Stay quiet, don't draw too much attention, just do something small if you must. He had heard it all his life, so many times that the words felt like a rule of nature, something that could not be broken. But that morning, something inside him stirred. He remembered all the nights he had spent practicing, all the hours spent imagining stories, all the quiet moments where his talent had breathed and grown without anyone noticing. It was as if a small flame had been kindled inside him, a flame that wanted to reach out and touch the world. He thought of the others who would be performing, of the applause and cheers, and he felt a strange mixture of fear and longing. Could he? Should he? For the first time, he wondered what it might feel like to be seen. In the classroom before the showcase, he sat quietly, notebook closed, hands folded. He could hear the whispers of others, the excited chatter about who would do what, who would impress the teachers, who would get the highest praise. He had no plan, or maybe too many plans, all jumbled together in his mind. He knew that if he stayed quiet, nothing would change. But if he stepped forward, he risked embarrassment, failure, and being laughed at. Yet the thought of hiding, of keeping his gift locked inside, felt heavier than the fear. When the principal called names, he held his breath. One by one, students went on stage, performing with confidence, laughing at mistakes, and soaking in the attention. He watched, feeling both admiration and envy. The teachers smiled, the parents clapped, and the students who were usually loud and popular were getting the recognition he had longed for in silence. He wondered if anyone would notice him, if anyone would see the talent he had nurtured in secret. As the list of names dwindled, the principal finally reached him. There was a pause, a moment of hesitation, and then the words that had always felt like a sentence were spoken aloud. "It's your turn." For a brief second, he froze. Every warning he had ever received echoed in his mind. Stay quiet, don't make a fuss, don't embarrass yourself. But then, beneath the fear, there was a pulse of determination. He stood, gripping his notebook tightly, feeling the weight of all those years where no one had listened. Walking onto the stage, he felt every eye on him. The room seemed to stretch, the lights brighter than he had imagined, the air heavier. He could hear the whispering fade into silence as everyone waited, expecting little, thinking he would follow the rules, stay quiet, and deliver something small, forgettable. But inside, he was ready to let go of years of restraint. He opened his notebook, revealing the work he had kept hidden for so long. His fingers hovered for a moment, and then he began. The first note, the first line, the first movement, it was like a spark catching fire. What had been contained for so long erupted into something that no one could ignore. His gift, the quiet skill that had lived in shadows, filled the room with energy and life. People gasped, leaned forward, and whispered to one another, unable to look away. He felt the heat of attention, the rush of something he had never allowed himself to feel. This was his moment, his gift roaring into the world, breaking through the walls that had kept him silent. For the first time, he realized that being quiet had not been his limitation, it had been his preparation. Every observation, every practice session, every moment of silence had led to this point. He saw the amazement in the eyes around him, felt the applause building, and knew that he could no longer hide. The quiet boy had become something else entirely, something powerful and undeniable. The hidden gift that no one had noticed had finally found its voice. After the showcase, the boy returned to his seat, heart still pounding, hands trembling with excitement and relief. The applause, the astonished faces, and the quiet murmur of admiration had left a mark that he could feel deep inside. He had stepped out of the shadows for the first time, letting his hidden gift breathe in the light. But the days that followed brought a mixture of emotions that he had not anticipated. Some of his classmates approached him, curious and amazed. They asked questions about how he had done what he did, how long he had been practicing, and why they had never seen it before. For the first time, he felt noticed, really noticed. Yet, at the same time, he felt the weight of expectations that had been absent before. People wanted him to perform again, to prove that the moment on stage was not a one-time thing. He had never considered that sharing his talent might come with a new kind of pressure. He tried to keep his routine the same, hoping that life would not change too quickly. But even simple moments felt different now. Teachers who had ignored him before now called his name in class, asking for his input, wanting to hear his ideas. Some students tried to befriend him, hoping to share in his newfound recognition. He felt a strange mixture of excitement and unease. The world he had carefully navigated in silence now seemed louder, brighter, and more demanding. At home, he was quieter than usual, trying to process the attention. His family noticed a difference, a subtle confidence in the way he moved and spoke, but they didn't fully understand what had changed. He didn't try to explain because words often felt inadequate. Instead, he spent hours in his room, revisiting the notebook and instrument that had been his secret companions. He worked harder, not for anyone else, but to honor the part of himself that had finally been acknowledged. The next school week brought new challenges. Teachers began asking him to help with projects, to perform in smaller events, and to participate in group activities. Some classmates watched him with admiration, while others were skeptical, questioning whether his talent was real or sustainable. He realized that stepping forward had not removed the obstacles. It had only introduced new ones. But he also understood that he had grown stronger because of the risk he had taken. One afternoon, the school held a small workshop where students could share their skills with younger classes. He was asked to demonstrate his ability. Standing in front of a room of younger students, he felt the familiar nerves creeping in. He remembered the fear of being overlooked, of being told to stay quiet, and for a moment he hesitated. But then he saw the eager faces of the children waiting to see him, and something inside him shifted. He began to demonstrate his talent, carefully at first, and then with more confidence as he felt the joy of sharing it. The reactions were immediate. The younger students were amazed, eyes wide with wonder, asking questions and wanting to try what he had shown. For the first time, he saw how his gift could inspire others, not just impress them. There was a thrill in that, a new sense of purpose. He realized that his talent was not only about being seen. It was about connecting with others, about making a small difference in their world, even if just for a moment. Even with these successes, doubts lingered. He noticed some students whispering, some teachers watching him too closely, and the familiar pull of fear telling him to retreat. But each time, he reminded himself of the showcase, the moment when he had let his gift roar through the room. He remembered the feeling of liberation, the power of allowing himself to exist fully. The quiet moments at home, the long hours of practice, and the patience of years had prepared him for this. No one could take away the truth of what he could do. He also began to notice changes in himself beyond recognition. The boy who had once faded into the background now spoke more openly, shared ideas more freely, and smiled without reservation. The confidence was not loud or flashy. It was steady, rooted in the knowledge that he had something valuable to offer. Even in moments of doubt, he could feel the quiet strength that came from embracing his hidden gift. Outside of school, he started seeking opportunities to grow. He joined small community events, participated in workshops, and even tried new things he had once been too shy to attempt. Each experience, whether successful or awkward, added layers to his understanding of himself. He learned that talent alone was not enough. It required courage, persistence, and the willingness to face the unknown. There were still moments when he wished for the old quiet, when the noise and attention felt overwhelming. But he also knew that hiding forever was no longer an option. He had tasted the freedom of expressing himself and could not go back to being invisible. Each day, he carried a new sense of responsibility, not to impress everyone, but to honor the part of himself that had been waiting so long to be seen. Through these experiences, he began to form connections with people who genuinely appreciated him for who he was, not just for the talent he displayed. Friends, teachers, and even strangers began to recognize that his quiet nature did not mean weakness, and his talent was not a fluke. They learned to listen, to give space, and to respect the depth of someone who had spent years in observation and reflection. By the end of the week, he had grown in ways that surprised even him. He no longer measured himself by the approval of others alone. He measured it by the courage it took to step forward and the joy he felt in sharing his gift. The hidden talent that had once whispered in the corners of his life was now a part of who he was, shaping not only how he moved through the world but how he understood it. The boy who had been told to stay quiet was beginning to understand that silence was not always a prison. Sometimes it was preparation. The time he had spent observing, listening, and practicing had created a foundation strong enough to carry him forward. And as he looked around at the people who were beginning to see him, he felt a quiet pride, a growing certainty that this was only the beginning of a journey he had long imagined in secret. As the weeks passed, a new opportunity arose that would test not only his talent but also his courage. The school announced a regional competition where students could showcase any skill: music, art, storytelling, or science projects. This time, the stakes were higher, the audience larger, and the pressure more intense. He listened to the announcements quietly, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear swirl inside him. Part of him wanted to enter, to step forward and show the world what he could do. Another part whispered doubts, reminding him of the comfort in staying unnoticed. He spent long nights thinking about what to present. He flipped through his notebook, played scales on his instrument, and rehearsed quietly in his room. The thought of performing again brought back memories of the showcase, the roar of the applause, the wide eyes of his classmates. But this time was different. The regional competition meant more people, more judges, and more expectations. The fear that he might fail and be embarrassed again pressed heavily on him. Despite the fear, he felt an urgency he could not ignore. He knew that hiding his talent any longer would only leave him with regret. Each quiet night of practice had been preparation, and now was the moment to put all that work to the test. He decided to enter the competition. The decision alone was liberating, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He could no longer be defined by silence. He had chosen to let his hidden gift take the stage. In the days leading up to the event, he worked tirelessly. He refined every detail, practicing until his fingers ached, and perfecting every note, every movement, every word. At first, the process felt exhausting and overwhelming, but gradually, it became exhilarating. With each rehearsal, he felt the quiet confidence inside him grow stronger. He was no longer just preparing to impress others. He was preparing to honor himself and the gift that had waited so long to be revealed. On the day of the competition, he arrived early, carrying his instrument and notebook, heart pounding with nervous energy. The auditorium was filled with students, parents, and judges, all buzzing with anticipation. The noise was heavier than he expected, the lights brighter, the space larger. For a moment, he wished he could hide somewhere, stay in the shadows where he had always felt safe. But he remembered the showcase, the feeling of freedom that had followed his first performance, and he knew he could not turn back. As the event began, one by one, students presented their talents. The room erupted in applause, laughter, and admiration for each performance. He watched closely, noting the reactions of the audience, the expressions of the judges, and the energy of the other participants. Each act was impressive in its own way, but he could feel a simmering fire inside him. It was his turn next, and the moment had arrived to step forward once more. Walking onto the stage, he felt every eye in the room fixed on him. The audience was larger than any he had faced before, but he reminded himself that he was prepared. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a brief second, and let the quiet strength within him take control. Then he began. The first notes rang out, pure and clear, filling the auditorium with a sound that had been waiting to be heard. Every movement, every tone, every subtle gesture carried the weight of years of hidden practice and silent preparation. As he performed, he noticed the reactions around him. The judges leaned forward, eyes wide in surprise and admiration. Some students whispered to each other, impressed by the skill and depth of his performance. Parents smiled, some with tears in their eyes, recognizing the talent and dedication that had gone unnoticed for so long. The energy in the room shifted, as if the walls themselves had recognized the power of someone who had spent years preparing in silence. He felt a surge of emotion as he continued, a mixture of joy, relief, and pride. Each note, each movement, was an expression of himself, not just a display of skill. He realized that his hidden gift was more than just talent. It was a part of who he was, something that had been nurtured in secret, now taking its rightful place in the world. The performance was not just for the audience. It was for him, a declaration that he could no longer be silenced. By the end of his performance, the auditorium erupted in applause. The sound was overwhelming, a tidal wave of recognition and appreciation that washed over him. He bowed, smiling, heart racing, feeling the fulfillment of a dream he had long held in private. For the first time, he understood the power of embracing who he truly was, of stepping out of the shadows, and letting his hidden gift shine. After the competition, people approached him with questions, compliments, and admiration. The judges praised not only his technical skill but also the passion and authenticity that came through in his performance. Fellow students who had once overlooked him now sought his advice, wanting to understand how he had cultivated such talent. He felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that his journey was not just about recognition but about inspiring and influencing others. Despite the accolades, he remained humble. He understood that this was only one step in a much larger journey. There would be more challenges, more performances, and more opportunities to grow. But for the first time, he felt confident in his ability to face them. He had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. He had learned that hidden gifts, when nurtured and respected, could change not only the life of the person who held them but also the world around them. In the days that followed, he reflected on the experience, thinking about the years of quiet practice, the moments of doubt, and the nights spent imagining what could be. Each memory was a testament to the resilience and dedication that had brought him to this point. He realized that every small step, every silent observation, and every moment of patience had been essential in shaping the person he had become. He also noticed changes in how he interacted with others. He spoke more freely, shared his thoughts and ideas without hesitation, and encouraged others to explore their own talents. His confidence was not loud or boastful. It was steady, rooted in the understanding that authenticity and effort were more powerful than attention-seeking or superficial praise. People began to see him not just as a talented student but as someone who had grown through patience, courage, and self-belief. Through this journey, he began to understand that his hidden gift was not just about performance. It was about connection, growth, and expression. Each performance, each showcase, and each interaction was an opportunity to share a part of himself that had long been kept in the shadows. He realized that being quiet had not been a weakness. It had been preparation, a time to observe, learn, and refine his talent until it was ready to shine. As he continued to navigate school, competitions, and performances, he carried with him the knowledge that his gift was valuable and worthy of recognition. He no longer sought approval from others. Instead, he focused on the joy and fulfillment that came from expressing himself fully. The journey had transformed him, teaching lessons about perseverance, courage, and the importance of embracing one's true self. By the end of this chapter in his life, he had grown not only as a performer but as a person. The quiet boy who had once been told to stay silent had become someone who could face challenges with determination, inspire others with his talent, and live authentically without fear. He had discovered the profound truth that hidden gifts, when nurtured and shared, could leave a lasting impact, not just on the world around him but on the person who dared to let them roar. After the regional competition, the boy's life began to change in subtle but powerful ways. His talent, once hidden and overlooked, had begun to shape not just his experiences but the way people perceived him. Teachers treated him with new respect, classmates who had once ignored him sought his advice, and even strangers recognized something special in his presence. Yet, despite all the attention, he remained humble, aware that true growth came from more than applause. He continued practicing every day, pushing himself to improve and explore new dimensions of his gift. Late at night, he would sit in his room, notebook open and instrument ready, experimenting with different techniques and expressions. What once had been solitary moments of quiet practice had evolved into a disciplined and focused journey. He had learned that talent alone was not enough. It required dedication, patience, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. One afternoon, the school announced an unexpected opportunity, a national event where students could showcase their skills to a much larger audience. This was the kind of stage he had only dreamed of, a place where his gift could truly be tested against the best. As the announcement settled over the room, he felt the familiar mixture of excitement and fear. The idea of performing before a national audience was daunting, but he also felt a surge of determination. He had faced challenges before, and he knew that preparation and courage would carry him forward. In the following weeks, he immersed himself in preparation. Every note, every movement, every story was refined and polished. He experimented with new ideas, blending techniques he had studied and personal touches that reflected his unique perspective. The process was exhausting at times, filled with moments of doubt and frustration, but he also discovered the joy of creation, the thrill of seeing his hidden gift grow stronger and more expressive. His family noticed the changes too. While they still struggled to fully understand the depth of his talent, they recognized his determination and the way his confidence had blossomed. Conversations at home became richer, filled with discussions about his experiences, the challenges he faced, and the lessons he had learned. For the first time, he felt that his achievements were not just personal victories but something that could inspire and connect with those around him. As the day of the national event approached, He felt a mixture of nerves and excitement unlike anything he had experienced before. The venue was larger, the audience more diverse, and the expectations higher. But he reminded himself of all the preparation, the countless hours of quiet practice, and the moments of courage that had brought him here. He knew that this was not just a performance. It was an opportunity to share a part of himself that had long remained hidden. Walking onto the stage, he felt the familiar weight of attention, but this time it was tempered with confidence. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a moment, and let the energy of the room settle around him. Then he began. Each note, each gesture, each expression was carefully crafted, yet filled with raw emotion. He poured himself into the performance, letting his hidden gift roar through the room in a way that was impossible to ignore. The audience was captivated. Judges leaned forward, eyes wide with admiration, taking in every detail. Students whispered to one another, amazed by the skill and passion on display. Parents and teachers were visibly moved, recognizing not just technical excellence but the depth of commitment and creativity that had shaped the performance. The energy in the room was electric, a living testament to the power of a talent nurtured in secrecy and then unleashed with courage. For the first time, he understood the full impact of sharing his gift. It was not merely about recognition. It was about connection, about inspiring others, and about demonstrating the value of perseverance and self-belief. The applause at the end of the performance was overwhelming, a wave of appreciation and respect that he had longed for yet never expected to feel so intensely. He bowed, heart racing, tears of joy and relief threatening to fall, knowing that this moment was the culmination of years of quiet dedication. In the days that followed, the experience continued to resonate. His performance became a topic of conversation, admired by peers and discussed by teachers. The boy who had once been told to stay quiet now found himself in a position to encourage and mentor others, sharing insights about practice, patience, and the courage to reveal hidden talents. He learned that leadership was not about being the loudest voice but about inspiring confidence and self-belief in those around him. Despite the success, he remained grounded. He understood that accolades were temporary, while growth and learning were lasting. He continued to practice, experiment, and challenge himself, driven not by praise but by the desire to honor the gift that had always been a part of him. He explored new techniques, new forms of expression, and even collaborated with others to expand the boundaries of what he could achieve. Along the way, he faced moments of doubt. Not everyone responded positively. Some questioned whether his talent was sustainable or whether his achievements were a fluke. At times, the pressure felt heavy, the expectations daunting. But each challenge reminded him of the resilience he had developed over years of quiet practice. He had learned that the path to mastery was never smooth, and that the courage to persist, even in the face of uncertainty, was as valuable as any skill or performance. Through these experiences, he began to see his talent not just as a gift for himself but as a tool to make a difference. He volunteered to perform at community events, shared his knowledge with younger students, and encouraged others to explore their own hidden abilities. The joy of inspiring someone else, of seeing a spark of curiosity or confidence in another person, became as rewarding as the applause he received on stage. By the end of this chapter in his journey, he had transformed in ways he could scarcely have imagined. The quiet boy who had once been dismissed and told to stay silent had become a source of inspiration, a living example of what could happen when courage and talent intersected. He had learned that the true value of a gift lay not only in its expression but in the connections it created and the confidence it inspired. He continued to walk through life with a quiet strength, aware that challenges would continue to come, that doubts and fears would arise. But he carried with him the knowledge that his hidden gift was not just a talent but a part of who he was, a source of power, joy, and connection. The journey was far from over, but he knew that he had taken the steps necessary to honor himself and his abilities, and that every time he shared his gift, he was making a mark on the world around him. In the end, the boy realized that being told to stay quiet had not been a punishment or a limitation. It had been a preparation. The years of observation, reflection, and patient practice had equipped him with the resilience, focus, and depth needed to make his hidden gift roar when the time was right. And as he looked ahead, he knew that this was only the beginning of a journey filled with possibility, discovery, and the endless potential of embracing one's true self. In the months that followed, the boy continued to grow, not only as a performer but as a person. His gift, once hidden and overlooked, had become an inseparable part of his identity. People now recognized him for his talent, but more importantly, they saw his dedication, resilience, and the courage it took to reveal what had long been kept secret. He had learned that true recognition was not about applause or praise alone. It was about embracing who he was and sharing it with the world. He began to take on more challenging projects, pushing himself in ways he had never dared before. Each new experience brought lessons, some difficult and some joyous. He experimented with different styles, explored collaborations, and sought out opportunities to perform in front of new audiences. Every step was a chance to grow, to refine his gift, and to learn more about himself. The quiet patience of years past had prepared him for this, giving him the confidence to approach challenges with focus and determination. At school, his presence had changed. He was no longer the boy who faded into the background. Teachers sought his perspective, classmates respected his opinions, and even the younger students looked up to him as an example of dedication and courage. Yet, despite this new recognition, he remained humble, understanding that talent alone was not enough to define him. It was the way he nurtured it, the effort he put in, and the integrity with which he approached life that made the real difference. Opportunities continued to grow. He was invited to perform at larger events, participate in competitions, and share his skills with a wider audience. Each performance was a mixture of excitement and nerves, but he had learned to channel those feelings into energy that enhanced his presentation. He remembered the first time he had stepped onto a stage, the fear, the uncertainty, and the small thrill of being noticed. Now, he understood that every performance, no matter the size of the audience, was a chance to connect, inspire, and express himself fully. Through these experiences, he began to see the impact of his gift beyond himself. Children in his community looked up to him, inspired to explore their own talents. Peers sought guidance, hoping to learn the patience and discipline that had shaped his success. Even strangers reached out, sharing stories of how his performances had moved them, motivated them, or encouraged them to pursue something they had once feared. He realized that his hidden gift was no longer a secret. It was a source of connection and inspiration. Despite all the attention and success, he faced moments of doubt. There were times when he questioned whether he was truly capable of continuing at this level, whether the expectations placed upon him were fair, or whether he could meet his own standards. Yet, each time he returned to the quiet spaces of practice, reflection, and preparation. These moments reminded him of the foundation that had been built over years of silent work, patience, and resilience. They gave him the strength to move forward, to embrace both challenges and triumphs with equal grace. As he continued to grow, he also began mentoring others, understanding that sharing knowledge and encouragement was as valuable as any performance. He guided younger students, offering advice on technique, discipline, and the importance of nurturing their own gifts. He encouraged them to take risks, to step out of their comfort zones, and to embrace the possibility of failure as a step toward growth. In doing so, he realized that the joy of seeing someone else flourish was as rewarding as the applause he received on stage. Life beyond the school stage brought new perspectives. He explored community events, local performances, and opportunities to collaborate with people from different backgrounds. Each experience broadened his understanding of the world and deepened his appreciation for the diversity of talent and expression. He learned that every person has something valuable to share, and that the courage to reveal one's gift can have far-reaching effects, touching lives in unexpected ways. The boy also discovered that personal growth was continuous. Even with recognition and success, there were always new skills to learn, new techniques to explore, and new challenges to face. He embraced this idea, understanding that the journey of nurturing a hidden gift never truly ends. Each performance, each project, each interaction was a chance to learn, refine, and grow stronger. The discipline, courage, and patience that had once seemed like burdens now felt like tools, empowering him to navigate life with confidence and purpose. Throughout this journey, he maintained a balance between humility and pride. He celebrated achievements quietly, reflecting on the work and effort behind each success. He acknowledged mistakes, learning from them and using them as opportunities to improve. And he continued to nurture the quiet part of himself, the observer, the thinker, the creator, understanding that his gift was not just about performance but about depth, insight, and authenticity. As time passed, he began to realize that being told to stay quiet had not been a limitation but a preparation. The years of observing, practicing, and reflecting had shaped a foundation strong enough to support his growth. He had learned to listen, to understand, and to appreciate the subtle nuances of his craft. And when the moment came to perform, to share, and to inspire, he did so with confidence, grace, and the knowledge that his gift was a part of who he truly was. In the end, he understood that the hidden gift he had once kept in the shadows was more than just a talent. It was a testament to perseverance, courage, and the power of believing in oneself. It had taught him lessons about patience, humility, and the importance of nurturing what lies within. And as he looked ahead, he felt ready to face the future, knowing that his journey was not defined by a single moment of recognition, but by the ongoing choice to embrace, develop, and share the gift that had once roared quietly within him.